Da 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 da! Welcome back to Stream Catchers. It's your boy AB.
And I am blessed with glorious purpose.
Woo!
What's going on? I am Jack. How are you?
Oh man, I'm great, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm very excited to talk about this week's Loki.
Yes, episode 2 of Loki, episode 16 of our podcast. Super happy about that. Just really excited to chat this one up. Heads up before we dive in, though, folks. Heavy incoming spoilers.
Oh yeah, we're gonna dive into all of the spoilery goodness.
Spoilers alert. That's your warning. So, initial thoughts on the episode, Jack. What you think, episode 2?
I thought that it was really good. We learned a lot. We learned a lot about the TVA. We learned a lot about a lot more about their technology. We learned a little bit about our villain, and I'm excited to dive into that. I'm trying not to prematurely.
I know, right? Let's just dive in. No. Yeah, man. Same. I really enjoyed it. Gosh, I love that the show is really just kind of cutting to the chase. Some of my gripes with WandaVision was it took forever for us to start learning anything about it. Even Falcon and Winter Soldier, I really enjoyed. It was so much speculation week to week. Like I didn't really know what's truly going on. Whereas here, there's still a lot of like what's real, what's not. But we have our villain. We sort of know what the mission is, and there's all sorts of hilarious calamity in between. So it's been a joy so far.
One of the big mysteries that we have with this show in particular is that we don't really know what the motivation for our protagonist is. We don't really know a whole lot of Loki's angle. Like we kind of know that we kind of now know that he wants an audience with the timekeepers and obviously to not be disintegrated from existence. But other than that, I mean, it's a little bit of a mystery, and that's kind of interesting.
I agree. Yeah, it's we don't know what the variant's real motivation is. We kind of have an idea based on how the episode ended. We don't know what Loki really wants. Seems like there's still a bit of a there were heart-wrenching moments where we'll get into the files and all that, but he's still sort of teetering on good guy, bad guy, unsure of what's going on. I mean, he's the god of mischief, right? So you really shouldn't know everything about him, but they're doing a good job of keeping us guessing, I think.
Well, Loki always serves himself, whether it be in a good way or an evil way, and I think that even right now his angle is unknown. He doesn't know who to side with. He doesn't know how he's gonna keep going. You know what I mean?
Right, for sure. So, you said you had a few things to go
on. I've got plenty of notes. I'm just gonna start from the top. I noticed that I forgot to talk about the music on last week's pod. Specifically the intro music. It's very interesting music. It's got the ticking. You hear the stopwatch kind of ticking. It's very cosmic. It's very mysterious. It's very Loki. And I did forget to mention that I really respected the music.
Yeah, I think just like any Marvel thing, the score so far has been pretty good. We've had the same sort of, I think it's the same music that plays when Frigga dies in Dark World, where whenever Loki starts to have a more personal moment, it plays in the background.
Yeah, and I think we got those kind of musical vibes when Odin bit the dust in Norway. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I've enjoyed the score so far too. And Marvel, they never let me down with the music.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just take it from the top though. We're at a Ren Fair in 1985. Some Minutemen get ambushed by our variant, our other Loki. Again, great music in this scene too. It reminds me of Shrek 2.
When the episode first started, the first time I watched it, I actually thought we were going to be straight up in that medieval time. I was like, oh, they're really taking advantage of time, and then it was like,
yeah, they subverted your expectations real quickly, and it was almost a dry joke, you know.
Yeah. There was a funny moment too where the Minutemen, they all pop up, or the TVA rather, they pop in.
Yeah.
And the folks at the Renaissance Fair, they're like, "You're not dressed right. Like, what are you doing?" And if
Mm-hmm.
you've ever been to a Renaissance Fair, yeah, everybody, they are in character, and if you're not, they kind of jest you and they give you crap like, "What are you doing? What is that?" Da, da, da. And I thought it was a good point there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So anyway, so we get to the point of the scene, which is our variant Loki takes a hostage, which she's never done before. He's never done before. Spoilers. So, well, actually, you know what? That actually leads me perfectly into something that I wanted to say. This show, along with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, subverted our expectations and was calling a she a he.
Yep. So I mean, obviously, we mentioned it at the top of the episode. Spoilers ahead. We by the end of the episode we find out that Loki, this supposed Loki, is a she, and I caught on right away in this scene because I guess one of her powers is the fact that she can actually possess or put her essence into someone else, and as she does that, you see her finger, and it's a very feminine hand. It was like, okay, that looks like a woman, and that was kind of the speculation that I had coming into this show.
Okay.
It was going to be Lady Loki, and we'll get to that in a bit. But that kind of tipped me away of, okay, yeah, we got a lady on our hands here.
Good catch. I watched the episode twice. I didn't catch it either time that it was a feminine looking hand. I guess I just wasn't. I was probably singing along to that.
Like, oh, it's a foot.
No, you're good. It's. I was probably just rocking out to the music and not paying attention. Great fight sequence. I do want to talk about the magic that she uses, because it's not like any we've seen before. Well, it is, but it's I don't know how early I want to talk about this. It looks like the type of magic that Wanda and Agatha use.
Sure, yeah. Especially Wanda, I think, particularly where at the end of WandaVision, we got to see it again for the first time since I think Ultron.
Yeah.
You can really take it. Well, Wanda's is a little bit different though, because with Wanda, she's putting people in a different reality, right? She's a great example would be the beginning of Ultron. She gets into Tony's mind, and he sees the end of the Avengers. Whereas with this lady, we'll just call her Lady Loki for now. With Lady Loki, it does feel like she's just possessing them and making them do her bidding. Or it does also seem like she's putting a bit of her soul, I think, or maybe a bit of her mind into them to take control of them.
Yeah. I mean, it's specifically with, obviously it's a different type of magic that's happening, but visually it looks similar. It's just a different color. That's what I noticed when, I mean, all you really see is the point of contact when she touches somebody. You see a little green mystic flare for a second, and then she's inhabiting another person.
Sure. Yeah.
So
this sets off like a thing, right? Or like an alert to the TVA to know that, hey, there's something's going on. The branch is messing up. So our TVA, Loki, and all them, they've got to go and try to stop her. And we could see a bit more of Loki's mischievous ways.
Yeah, so when they show up to the Ren Fair in 1985 after Lady Loki wreaks some havoc, and they talk a little bit, or Loki poses the question, why wouldn't they just time travel to the event before Lady Loki got there? And we kind of get a little explanation on that, and that is that when the Nexus event branches, it kind of since it's messing with time, it's too unstable to travel before it.
Time was the explanation.
Which is so
a little confusing.
It makes sense because if their whole point is to erase that timeline, they would have to get to that branch.
Yeah.
And then so they'd have to do that in real time.
Maybe I'm just looking at it too literally or black and white, but to me, it's just like, if you can go up to any time, how is that technically real time? Because isn't the point before also technically real time? So I don't know, but I get it. I guess it's just time. That's kind of, I'm trying not to get too cynical with the time stuff, because I just feel like there's so many loopholes that you can take, and you kind of just have to accept the rules that they're telling you instead of
Right.
make it make sense in a way. But
And this show's been doing a pretty good job of making explanations be pretty vague and open to interpretation, because they, I mean, Mobius has said multiple times now that time works differently, you
right,
know, for them. So
it's
I
one
don't
of those
know.
things
That's
you
all
gotta
we've
just
got
have
to
to
go
accept
on.
and be along for the ride.
Yeah, exactly. So we learn a little bit more about how um, the reset devices work.
Yeah,
They prune everything in a radius, and pruning is the disintegration of anything that was affecting that branched timeline, so that they get back to the sacred timeline,
right.
which they've shown the visual representation of that with the normal timeline and then the red branchy bit.
Yeah, yeah. And there's like a point where this was one of my favorite parts of the whole scene was Loki seemingly, hey, we're gonna be ambushed if we walk out of this tent, and they're like,
Yeah.
was it B-15's like, shut up, you know? And Mobius is like, well, hold on, let's listen to him. And he's like, and then they only have so much time, I guess, to
Hmm.
to to prune, to use that device that will reset the timeline. They only have so much longer to do that until it branches off to a permanent, you know, a permanent new time branch. And he's just taking his time and playing around. So it's more mischievous Loki that you know it wouldn't be it wouldn't be a Loki show without mischief.
Right. He's scheming. He's stalling for time. The red line is what they call it. If they go past the red line, they're unable to reset the sacred timeline. And according to them, that implies the destruction of the timeline and reality as we know it, which,
Yeah.
you know, we'll see about that. I think that's part of a narrative, but
Right. That's sort of the whole thing too. Is you know, I mentioned that they're cutting to the chase, but they are still giving us. They're not giving us everything, and I think that we talked about this last week. And from what I've seen from the conversations online with people just talking about the show, I think the idea that everything the TVA is telling us so far isn't 100%, and it's just a narrative that they're trying to project onto us. And
yeah.
maybe Mobius knows about it. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe Renslayer is maybe playing Mobius at some point too. But I'm just still not convinced that everything we're hearing from the TVA is true. I think, and that would make me feel better about some of these weird loopholes that we're seeing too.
Yeah, I think I mean, ultimately, I think it's gonna have something to do. It's gonna have something to do with an unknown about the timekeepers. So there's information about the timekeepers that we don't know
Right.
that is going to change everything.
Right.
And you know, without diving too far into it, I have a gut feeling it's going to have to do with Kang. We didn't touch on it a whole lot last week, but I did a little bit more Googling, and he just they've shown so many statues of the timekeepers. They're giving you the image of what the timekeepers look, so that you can have that mental image, because I know that Kang looks just like him. He has that like outlined face bit with the green and blue, and I mean, the color scheme was the same in the animation. I really think that Kang is a timekeeper.
I don't think he is, because he wasn't in the comics, but they have shown that they're willing to rewrite things
Yeah.
and change things up to fit what they're trying to do, and they've done a decent job at it, I think too. So um, I don't, I'm not a believer to the point where that's my theory, but I
Okay.
do think that we will see, or at least he will be mentioned in the show.
Okay.
So we're just going to differ on that, but I
Yeah. Yeah.
don't think you're totally wrong. I mean, he probably has something to do with them, or maybe they do change it up.
I've I've got two separate theories about Kang being a timekeeper that I want to just touch on, and then we can talk about something else, because I won't. You know, I mean, I'm not hopeful. You know,
Yeah,
I don't care one way or another if he is a timekeeper. I just think it would be cool if it happens, and I don't know. I want to roll with the theory. You know what I mean? It's
sure, yeah,
Marvel, so I'm gonna love it no matter what. Anyway, so the two theories that I have is that there are three timekeepers, and that he is one of them, bound to betray the other two, or that he was a fourth timekeeper that no longer works with them.
I think that's more likely. I think that's a fair theory. I don't think
Okay,
that's too
you like
far.
the fourth,
I don't think
you
that's
like the fourth one.
yeah. The idea that he was
Okay,
a fourth timekeeper. I don't think that's too far fetched. His
okay,
whole thing has been just he's existed in so many different times, and there are so many different versions of Kang that
yeah.
there's so much that they can do with that character. So I'm really interested to see what they do. Just knowing Marvel's Marvel, and I trust that whatever it is, it's going to work.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't think that he himself is one of the three that we've seen. I think that's probably where I'm at with it.
Okay, so I okay, I will ask you this though. I feel like they are showing us statues of the timekeepers, faces of the timekeepers, animations of the timekeepers. We've seen them so many times throughout this
Mm-hmm.
show. They've even touched on the possibility that Loki could get an audience with the timekeepers.
Yeah.
They're showing them so much so that we're not totally shocked when they do pop in and we actually do see them in person. Do you think we're going to see timekeepers in
Oh, for
person?
sure. That's it's
Okay.
they were mentioned quite a bit in this episode specifically. Because yeah, I mean, I don't remember if it was before the Ren Fair scene or even after, but Mobius he kind of teases to Loki that he might be able to see the timekeepers, and he was like, "Oh, that's on the table," and that's kind of his thing throughout the rest of the episode. Matter of fact, it was before that because he mentions it in that sequence where he's like, trust me, I need assurances that I can talk to the timekeepers and he won't disintegrate me. And that's when Mobius realizes that he's just BSing them. So that's sort of the theme. And he even reveals in later parts of the episode that he wants to betray them and take over the TVA for himself, and tries to recruit the Lady Loki as well. And there was even a mention too of somebody else wanting to see them, or I don't remember
Well,
exactly. Was it Mobius?
Mobius had said that he had never met them
I
before.
think that's what I'm talking. Yeah, where he had never met them, but Renslayer was in tune with what they were thinking and what they wanted.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, implying that she had met with or communed with them somehow, but she
Exactly.
didn't say it outright.
Exactly. So yeah, I agree. I think they're definitely popping up at some point. Maybe it's a last episode thing where Loki has to be presented in front of them to plead his case, and
Yeah,
maybe he's helped TVA stop Lady Loki, and then and that's the only scene we get of them. Who knows what it is, but I do think we'll see him.
yeah, I agree. I think that that's why they're giving us so many visual representations of them. I think if they just left it at Loki calling them giant lizards a few times and then they pop up in the last episode, it'd be a little jarring. So I think that's why they're showing us statues and stuff.
I agree. Yeah, they're putting it in your mind that they're coming, but
Yeah.
I think.
So
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. No, I was just gonna move us along. What's up?
I was too actually. I was gonna say that.
Yeah, so I was just going to say that we really dive into the mind games after the Ren Fair and after the situation because Loki's kind of trying to backpedal and say, well, this was your first lesson in being Loki is that expect the expected. I'm a god of mischief, so I'm gonna try to
Right.
mess with you. And so they're talking about being 10 steps ahead of each other, and ultimately, I think that kind of makes them admire one another, respect one another. They're kind of bonding in this like you're playing me, I'm playing you, and but ultimately we're playing the same game, so we have to work together. And I think that's a good dynamic for these two characters.
Sure, I agree. I think that was the bulk of the episode, really. I mean, this whole
Yeah,
scene with the Renaissance Fair and the TVA showing up and all that really set the stage for Mobius doesn't, obviously for great reason, doesn't trust Loki. Loki's skeptical himself of the TVA, and we see this whole we got to work together to get this figured out, and it turns into like a buddy cop sort of scenario where you get a lot of really funny moments. You get really great chemistry between the two actors. I think Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston have really knocked it out of the park so far. But
sure.
yeah, the bulk of the episode and even sets up to where we finish is all centered on the relationship between Loki and Mobius.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
there's a weird trust distrust between the two, and I really I really dig it.
I do too, and I who knows what this show does and where they take these characters. But I really hope this isn't the only thing we see Owen Wilson in for the MCU. I hope that they find a way to help him pop up here and there. kind of like Sharon would pop up here and there, every
Yeah.
6 movies or so, or whatever. I don't want this to be the last we see of Owen Wilson.
Well, I think that with the if the TVA gets a continued presence in the MCU at large, I think it will be. I think Owen Wilson will be our Mobius will be our surrogate character for that.
Sure, sure. Well, he puts Loki to work too. He puts him up with some files, and I had mentioned a little bit ago the sort of heart-wrenching moment where he's trying to get all the files from the beginning of time or the TVA or the end of time, and they're all classified. He only has access to his own files.
Yes.
He's looking through it, and he comes across Ragnarok and the destruction of Asgard and most of their people, and that's where that song plays. That I think you mentioned it. Played.
Yeah. You get the dramatic musical cue. The
Close up on his eyes. He looks like a little teary-eyed, and
yeah. I don't know what gets him more. I mean, they zoom in on a lot of those phrases. Total civilization destruction. Almost 2,000 or almost 10,000 body count. No variants detected. So he knows that he was supposed to. It's his destiny.
yeah, and it sets off the rest of the episode too, because that's when he gets this light bulb moment of no variance energy. This is an apocalypse. Well, what if? So and this is probably my favorite scene in the episode, other than the end.
The salad scene.
Salad, and he goes to grab the juice from Casey, and he's like, "Oh, it's you!" And it's like, "I'm taking this real quick." And it was, yeah, that was probably my favorite scene, where he's explaining that because an apocalypse destroys everything in its sight, you could do anything. I could push the Hulk off the Rainbow Bridge in Asgard, and I can do this, and this. And he's like pouring the salt and the pepper and Mobius' salad, and they test it out, and it was a fun moment.
Which leads into my favorite scene, the Pompeii scene, where Loki is messing with these people in Pompeii. I am Loki, the god of mischief. You're all about to be destroyed by this volcano. He frees the goats, he throws some food, tells everybody to dance, and then the volcano erupts, and their theory is right.
Yeah, it was great. I especially love the "Be free, my horned friends," and as you see in your background, he's got his horns.
Yeah,
that was
I was laughing at that scene. That's so good.
It was, yeah, it was, and of course that leads them to more bonding, really, because they're looking for other like natural disasters, and they're having a conversation, and Owen Wilson is talking about these jet skis and how he loves jet skis, and
so let's talk about that for a second, because I have a little bit of a theory with the jet skis. Sparked it got my wheels turning.
Fire away.
I think that it's possible. It's just a theory. It's a little bit of a far-fetched theory I'm going to propose. I'll say it right now. I think that Owen Wilson, Mobius, I keep calling him Owen Wilson. I think that Mobius could be an X variant from the 1990s.
I could see that.
I don't even know if he knows that. You know what I mean?
Right, because Loki has posed the thing. Where are you from? What's your whole thing here? And he always just kind of hints that I was created for this, right? Everybody here was created for it. That doesn't really make sense. Like, they've confirmed that this Loki can't go back to his timeline. So the only thing that would leave him to do would be to stay with the TVA or be disintegrated. And so I wonder if maybe Owen Wilson, that's actually a good theory. Maybe he messed up the timeline somehow, and they brought him along, and he just has these fond memories of jet skis. He's also drinking that, what is it, Josta? That soda?
I don't know what that is.
It's a 90s soda that just isn't around anymore.
Ooh.
But he's always drinking it in every episode.
Mobius is a 90s kid.
Maybe. That's a good theory.
Okay, yeah. Well, Loki is burdened with glorious purpose, and we have taken that away from him. So, it's definitely, we talked about it a little bit earlier. His motivations in this show are hard to pin down. But so he takes Mobius to Pompeii on this hunch that the variant could be hiding in apocalypses because nothing that the variant does in those timelines would matter if the apocalypse happens. So Mobius is I'm not going to say gullible. You know, he'll go along with Loki to an extent. If he was wrong, if Mobius follows Loki and Loki's wrong, could Mobius, if he's not a variant already or wasn't a variant, could he become a variant? Could a TVA member mess with time to a point where they would ruin the sacred timeline?
I suppose they can. I suppose anything could technically ruin the timeline, right? I mean,
Yeah,
if they were to go back in time, I mean, yeah, that was the whole point of the Pompeii scene, was we could mess up this timeline. Of course, they could have said it right, but
yeah.
I suppose he could. I don't see why not.
Yeah, I mean, they were talking about how they're kind of the only ones with free will. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Free will is such a weird plot device for this show, right? For any time travel, any timeline show.
especially for an organization that their whole purpose is maintaining the timeline as it is, and their whole narrative is we dictate what happens. So it's like you can't have both, because you're also saying that you can have free will, but it's like if you will it to the point where I was supposed to eat a bag of Doritos and then instead I had Ruffles and somehow that messed up the timeline, like, you know. But then that's my thing, is like there's the whole thing of this was supposed to happen but this wasn't, even though this was time travel, but I don't know. It's, again, you kind of just have to accept what they're telling you.
Yeah.
Try to pick too much at the finer details.
Every time I find myself really, really picking at it, I start to feel like I dislike the show, which isn't true. I like the show very much, and I'm hanging on every word. So I'm really allowing my suspension of disbelief to go crazy and ride with this series.
Right. Yeah. I feel like that's kind of what you have to do with Marvel, the Star Wars. I mean, you know, I at one point was a much bigger pro wrestling fan. That's another great example of disbelief. So it's a matter of, if you're watching something where you have gods and robots that can talk and all these, it's, you kind of, Miss Minutes is like this cartoon that's in real life that, like, we kind of skipped over that, but
that's true. Yeah.
You have to suspend your disbelief, I think, for something like this.
Yeah. So,
but they that moment with the jet skis was pivotal, because that whole conversation leads Mobius, leads Mobius to
it's easy to do,
to remember that kablooey gum that we saw in the last episode, which helps him find out that that our variant is hiding out in an apocalypse in the future. So they're finding things, and they're looking through tsunamis and all these other disasters that will come down the road, volcanic eruptions, whatnot. And they settle on Haven Hills, Alabama. It's a very random place. I don't know why I chose Haven Hills, Alabama.
Hey, it was the only place in time where there was an apocalyptic event and also kablooey bubble gum.
Yeah.
Or candy or whatever it is.
It leads them to a rocks cart, giant Costco style store.
Yeah.
And they roll in there, the whole team, and we got to find a variant.
Yeah, we quickly find out, through a shot of the antagonist from behind, still cloaked and everything. You know, she's in the security room, so she's watching them. She's also got this timer, 20 minutes, and we find out pretty quickly that those are all hooked up to the charges that she's stolen from the Minutemen. Which, actually, I should have asked you this earlier. How has she been getting around before she kidnapped? What was her name? C-20, the girl from the Ren Fair. How has she been getting from place to place on the timeline? Do you think that's part of her magic?
I don't think it's part of, I don't know. I really don't know an explanation. I think it's something we're going to end up finding out. If I had a theory, I would say that she came across some device that allowed her to travel time, or maybe she is a true variant, or not variant, a true, like, other Loki type from a different multiverse, or whatever it is. I couldn't say. I'm sure we're going to find out, though. I would imagine next episode we'll probably find out.
For sure. Yeah. So the team breaks into two, and Loki is on B-15's team, and they butt heads naturally, which I love.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. It's I'll be curious to see. I mean, obviously we know what happens with Loki, but I'll be curious to see how that relationship sort of finishes out when this episode or this show is over. Rather,
Yeah, I always love reluctant allies, so
same. There's just so
yeah.
much you can do with it. There's so much flexibility.
Yeah, and Lady Loki is definitely going to be lighting a fire under B-15 because she possessed her, and I don't think she's going to like that.
Sure, yeah, and well, we see the first possession as a guy in this plant section, which the
Hmm.
second you see it, you're like, yeah, this is obviously not a guy
He's
who
he's
happened.
out of place, right? He's shopping during a hurricane, so
Yeah, and so we see the first bit of what Lady Loki can do when she transfers her, let's just say, essence from this guy into B-15, and then Loki recognizes, oh, you're me, and a line that she says back is, if anybody's anybody, you're me.
yeah.
And so this is my thing, because we then find out as she, and that's kind of, let's just wrap up the episode, I suppose, at least the show itself.
We're
We
close enough. Let's talk about the end. Yeah.
we go from she's transferring to different bodies, and then Loki's fighting each one, and ultimately she shows herself. She escapes after she drops these. What are they called? Time displacers? Is that what they're called?
The time resetters?
Time resetters. So
I
yeah,
am
she
not
has
sure.
these time resetters set throughout the entire. Oh, sorry about that, folks. Some technical difficulties. Gotta love
Yeah.
calls.
Okay, so we were. It happens to the best of us. So we're talking about some time resetters.
Right, right. So Sylvia, or Lady Loki has these time resetters set throughout the store. She presses up the timer that Jack mentioned a minute ago, goes off. They drop, sets all these branches off in the multiverse. She dips out. The TVA is running to the scene where Loki and Lady Loki were having their conversation. They come up on Loki. They're trying to get him to not jump into the door that she opened up. He does, and now they've lost Loki, and that is the episode how they leave us. So let's get into some Lady Loki stuff.
Okay. You got something?
I got a few things. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just said it, Sylvie. There
Sylvie.
is a I can't remember which. There's a version of this episode from some international country. In the credits, they credit her as Sylvie. That's her
Okay.
name. So she hasn't been named yet, but that was what they named her in that specific. I don't know if it was the Brazilian version or what it was, but in the comics, Sylvie is a character by the name of Enchantress, not to be confused with DC's Enchantress, but there is a character in Marvel named Enchantress that it is led to believe that Loki actually created her,
Ooh.
and she had that line that I mentioned a second ago, where she said, "If anybody's anybody, you're me," and then she also says, "Don't call me Loki," or something to that effect. So she doesn't like being called a Loki.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering if they just sort of combined these two characters to create this sort of just hybrid of an Enchantress Lady Loki type.
Well, I am glad that you wanted to shed light on this person's true identity because I have two pieces of information that back up that theory. One is, and I've been burned by IMDb before with the with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but she is only credited as the variant on IMDb,
Okay.
not Lady Loki. I don't know if that's a spoiler deal or what, but they're calling her the variant.
Right.
Another thing is another little piece is when I'm still going to call her Lady Loki until they name her Sylvie. I think I'm going to call her Lady Loki just for the time
I
being.
think you should.
She's in the big guy's body, and he's throwing Loki around, and Loki has the line, "I would never treat myself this way."
Yes. I would
I
agree.
don't. I don't think he would. I think that if this was truly a Loki from a different universe, I think every single other Loki would be such a schemer that they would want to ally with other Lokis.
I agree. I agree. And I I don't know. I think, yeah, calling her Lady Loki for now, just because the episode one ends with we are looking for a Loki, and this entire episode they were saying it is a Loki. They're trying to think like Loki, learn how what he would do, and that was Tom Hiddleston's whole thing. You know, like this is what I would do. This is this, that, and the other. And so I think for the time being, until they name her Sylvie or whatever they're going to call her, we should just keep calling her Lady Loki or even the variant. Um, but it's got me curious. It's got my juices flowing, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it.
Yeah, same here. I was talking to one of our fans, a dear friend of ours, Ryan, about Lady Loki and the implications that Loki, the series is going to play into the grander scheme of things in the MCU and the multiverse of madness to come. And he theorizes that the Jane Foster Thor that everybody's been talking about, the new Thor Love and Thunder character, Jane Foster Thor, is going to be Jane from another universe.
Hmm. I could see that. I could see that just because the current Jane, let's call her Jane Prime, I suppose. I think that's what they're supposed to call them.
Jane Prime. I like that.
I
Yeah.
think that's yeah. I think it's what it is. We'll
Okay.
just call her Jane Prime for she and Thor are not together anymore. He doesn't even know where she's at. So I mean, it would
Right.
make sense that this is a different. But I think there was a scene leak where they showed her being possessed by lightning and getting her power. So I don't know. That's a good theory, though. That's a good.
I mean, they could just be subverting your expectations,
They
though.
could.
That could be. We could be seeing that in one light when they, the context is everything, right?
Sure, sure. And I mean, I think that this specifically will impact. I think the MCU, at least in Phase Four, a lot more than we really anticipate. I saw one theory online that you remember the very last scene in WandaVision where she's off in the cabin and she hears her
Mm-hmm.
kids. What if that is this exact moment that the time resetters drop and the multiverse goes to hell? That's the same moment, and she's hearing a multiverse of them in real life opening up.
What event are you talking about? Where are you talking about when the time resetters drop into the other timelines? What
Right,
event are
right,
you
right.
talking about?
So yeah, in the store, the time resetters all drop. That they show, they go back to the TVA. They show their screens, and there's the main timeline, and then there are all these branches popping off. Um, so that's
So
like,
we're led to believe that all these time resetters went to different points in time and reset those timelines to alter them.
well, I think that's heavily implied. Yeah, that's messing up the entire multiverse.
So wouldn't she have had to mess with the time resetters themselves? Because I would think that if you went to a point in time where there was no Nexus event and you triggered the time resetter, that it would have nothing to disintegrate because everything would be on the sacred timeline.
Well, what do you think this thing was then? What do you think happened
I
here?
mean, obviously, I mean, she's doing what she set out to do. She's destroying time. I guess. I guess that's her motivations. We're definitely going to learn more about her motivations next episode because Loki followed her through that door. He's going to learn a lot about her in the next one. But I, my only guess is that she wants to get back to her own universe, and this is how she does it, or maybe she wants to overthrow the timekeepers. I'm not really sure what her goal is here, but she wants to break time, and this is how she's done it. And I don't know how she's done it with the devices she's stolen.
Right. I mean, it just seems like they've messed up the flow of time. So there are all these branches and different realities. And so the idea is that there is a reality where, if we're talking specifically about that Wanda event, where there's a reality where her kids are real and not creations from her magic, and
Mm-hmm.
that this event happened at the same time that she was just training.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah,
Hmm. It's spicy. I like it.
because there has to be some explanation for how her kids are able to just manifest into being
Right.
in life, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I watched that scene in WandaVision originally, I thought that was her, is it her astral projection form was just experiencing a part of the multiverse.
I did too.
Um,
Maybe that's what it is. That was just a theory that I saw online. That would be a cool kind of tie-in to that.
yeah, no, definitely for sure. I think you're thinking with portals, and I like it.
Well, I just know that she's going to be a big part of Multiverse of Madness, and this is obviously creating multiverses. So it would make sense that that was the case. But I want to read off some of these cities because there were a lot of Marvel planets and whatnot that they showed. So I've got screen caps from the episode where they're showing the branches move off, and there's different dates and times. So there's like August 3rd, 1522 of Phang Nga, Vietnam, and then like Lisbon, Portugal, and then we see a Vormir from 2301. We see an Asgard from 2004. We see a Sakaar from August 13th, 1984. We see
These
Egypt.
are all timestamps on the TVA's computers.
Yes, yes.
Oh, I missed those completely. I didn't see
Yeah.
those at all.
It was a quick thing that you kind of had to
Okay.
pause each one. So
Okay.
there's Finland, there's Titan in 1982, there's Hala, the home of the Kree that we saw in Captain Marvel, and then there's like Tokyo, New York, other things like that. There was even one of Jotunheim. There were a lot of Marvel specific planets and cities that were impacted by this. So as these different timelines are branching off, we might see them have to go back to some of these points. Maybe we see a scene on Titan. Maybe we see a scene on
I would
Hala,
love that. I would love that.
The impact that those had.
Yeah, I really like it. Do you think that this is what's creating the multiverse of madness, so to speak?
I think so. I think
This is it?
I think this is it. And I like that they did it so early in the show because that means now we have 4 more episodes where they're dealing with the implications of this.
Mm-hmm.
And
it almost seems the clear route to do it in the last one, and it's really cool to do it early and have the aftermath be the plot of the show,
Exactly. And then of course just let Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch kind of deal with these in their movie too.
While I was talking to Ryan, he is also on the same page as you. He really wants to see a Doctor Strange cameo in this.
I don't anticipate that. I would love that, but I was let down that he wasn't in WandaVision. I am not going to expect to see him in this. It would be cool.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I don't see that happening. He's supposed to be in Spider-Man though, and I think that this will also have an impact on Spider-Man that's coming out this year as well. Since we know, before we hopped on, we talked about Doc Ock and Electro are going to be in there, and they're obviously coming from different universes or different movies. So this should have an impact on that as well.
Well, they did say that Loki was going to have the biggest impact on the MCU as a whole. So I think we're seeing that right now with this event.
Absolutely. I had a thing too I wanted to talk about. So assuming this is Lady Loki, and assuming that this is just because there was a scene in the episode where they showed different versions of Loki. There was like a bicyclist that won the Tour de France. Viking Loki, there's a blue Loki. There are all these different Lokis. So there are definitely different Lokis. And there's another theory that I ran by on online that I wanted to run by you, that we're going to get a kid Loki who is a part of from the comics. He's a part of the Young Avengers.
Ooh, a part of the Young Avengers, not a villain of the Young Avengers.
No, he's a Young Avenger, yeah.
No kidding, that would be so cool.
I know, yeah, and it's like it does seem like they are building towards the Young Avengers. If that's the case, I mean that's a big theory to have, and they didn't tease that at all. But
you can say it's a big theory, but it just seems like they're putting so many different Young Avengers pieces on the board, though.
They are, because we know we're going to we have Hawkeye is supposed to be Bishop, right? We know
Bishop.
Cassie Lang is going to be much more involved in Ant-Man, Quantumania. We know that Miss America is going to be, or not Miss America Chavez is going to be in Doctor Strange. We know that Miss Marvel's coming out. We saw Eli Bradley. Plus, who knows what's going to happen with Armor Wars, if they're going to introduce, we know, is it Ironheart they're doing? Is that so there's a lot of younger characters that are popping up that it would really only make sense that we're going to get a Young Avengers.
Yeah, it's exciting, man. It's exciting. It's after the Infinity War and all that, Endgame stuff, it was difficult to anticipate bigger and better things for the MCU. But I love that they keep putting new pieces on the board.
I do too. It's tough too because you're dealing with losing Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. So you don't have you don't have Steve Rogers Captain America. You don't have Tony Stark. But no, we do have a new Captain America, and I'm super excited about Sam Wilson. And we're gonna get some version of an Iron Man with Armor Wars coming out. Obviously, it'll focus on Rhodey, but there's hints that we might get a successor perhaps. But we're seeing a lot of these OG characters leave. And so they're really in that phase of building up new characters to set up a new Avengers and maybe even a Dark Avengers and a Young Avengers. And it's exciting times.
As long as they keep up this quality of storytelling, I mean, it doesn't matter what the characters are for me. You know, I mean, I've been wowed by characters that if it weren't for the MCU, I probably wouldn't even known existed, to be honest with you.
I had no idea anything about the Guardians of the Galaxy before.
Same.
You know, and now it's like you can't really go anywhere that sells Marvel products, so you don't see Baby Groot or anything like that. So yeah.
Shang-Chi, I don't know anything about Shang-Chi. I don't know anything about the Eternals. I'm very excited to get to them. You know,
I am too, especially considering that we're so close. Like we're only like 2 or 3 weeks away from Black Widow coming out, and
yeah, man,
it's an exciting time, and Loki.
Good time to be a Marvel fan.
It is. Screw you if you are a Marvel hater.
What are you doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got a little sidetracked there. Let's back up to I want to talk about C20. They recover the agent that Lady Loki kidnapped. She's out of it. She's she keeps repeating, it's real, it was real. What do you think she's talking about?
That's a good question. But I'm glad you mentioned her, because that reminds me, when I was trying to gather who also mentioned the timekeepers, it was her, because she says that she gave the timekeepers' whereabouts to Lady Loki. So as far as the it's real, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I mean, unless she's talking about, it's a real Loki variant, but I mean, I
think she's referencing the multiverse of madness. I think that we don't really know anything about it specifically, but I think that she was shown something that her brain can't process right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Totally possible. That's a good guess, the multiverse. But I mean, I guess I might be getting lost in the language of multiverse versus timelines, because when they show us the main timeline, and
the sacred timeline.
The sacred timeline, thank you. And they show these red branches that are alternate timelines. But does that make it a multiverse, or is it just an alternate timeline? What's the difference between an alternate timeline and the multiverse?
I don't know.
Right.
I guess I've kind of been throwing around the terms, but I haven't been thinking about that specifically. Well, so they showed the scene where they show the little holograms of all the other Lokis, imply that they're aware of a multiverse, but also there's a sacred timeline where all of the multiverse exists, but they're all separate, I guess. And then the red branches are us as I say us, the MCU's timeline branching into other timeline. Like, that's how this is hard to put into words.
No, I get it.
It's how those events are how other Lokis from other universes would appear in ours. I mean, that's all I've got. That's that, and the TVA is the only bridge that I would know about.
I feel like DC's multiverse is a little bit easier to comprehend.
Because a little simpler, yeah.
It is, because you have Earth 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth, and you can travel between the multiverses, because they also deal with time travel as well with the Flash, right? So he can go back and forth and mess up the timeline however he wants to. Shout out to Flashpoint. And it does seem a little bit more fluid, whereas here, again, this is just playing into the TVA's narrative, but the idea is there's one timeline, everything's dictated. But if there's one timeline, how do you get a world or a Loki that wins the Tour de France? How does
Yeah.
this Loki somehow become a giant alien looking thing? You know what I mean? It's because it's like, but I mean, I guess he does have the ability to change his form and all that.
Yeah.
But I mean, is there a multiverse where there's a Captain America that's Puerto Rican? I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, but I guess that could also conceivably happen. So I don't know. It's
I think that we're speculating. We're running on fumes. We don't have a whole lot of that information, and I think we're going to get it next episode because Loki's going to have a lot of big questions for Lady Loki in the next one.
yeah.
So I think it's best for us right now to table it and just talk about it next time, because I think we'll have a lot more. If we don't have answers, we'll have a lot more information at least.
Sure, I agree. I think that yeah, that obviously there's going to be a conversation to be had with Loki and Lady Loki. He's going to have his questions. I think we'll find out her backstory a little bit, maybe a version of it, because if she is a version of Loki, there might be some mischief attached to it. But I think that the next episode is going to give us a lot more information on what's real and what's not, and what's narrative and what's get real.
Yeah. So I think definitely we're going to get more insight into her motivations. Right now, all we know is that she grilled C20 for information about where the timekeepers are, how to find them, and that's not a whole lot to go on. The only speculation that I've got is now that she's created all these Nexus events, and the timekeepers have to flee the TVA and get to these points where they have to reset the timeline. We're going to have an empty TVA for Lady Loki to maybe teleport into and, I don't know, steal files, do whatever she needs to do and get out. Or if she's going to take Loki to another apocalypse event where she's hiding out. I don't know where they're going to go. But yeah, we don't really know her motivation.
Right. I think both are likely. I know that when you watch the trailer, the first time that she's shown at all, there's just from the back, you see the blonde hair and Loki's kind of approaching her and sitting down next to her. And then there's like shots of meteors crashing. So that would lead you to believe that that might be where we go next. That's an apocalypse.
Yeah.
And they can't be protected there. And they sit down. So it also leads you to believe that a conversation is going to be had. So
for sure.
I think that's possible. But I also think it's possible that they go to the TVA, because there's also a scene in the trailer where they show Loki with the daggers. And we saw that in this episode where Mobius gives him the daggers and the B-15's like, no, sir. And she takes them right back. So I think that both are going to happen. I mean, obviously Loki's going to come back to the TVA at some point, but I think that this next episode is going to open up. We're at an apocalypse and they're going to have a conversation, and hopefully we learn a little bit more about Lady Loki.
Where do you think moving forward Loki's allegiances are going to lie?
With himself, I think.
Whatever's going to serve himself the best, for sure. But do you think that's going to be with Lady Loki, or do you think that's going to be remaining loyal to the TVA?
I think he's going to get betrayed by her at some point in true Loki fashion, and I think he's going to recognize, okay, she's got to be stopped, and I think he will meet back up with Mobius and the rest of the TVA, and he'll have more.
No, I agree.
Yeah, more awkward interactions with B-15, I'm sure will be definitely wanted.
Yeah.
There's something I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah. Please, I think I'm out of notes, so let's do it.
Sure. After the events at the Renaissance Festival, and Loki does his whole thing, and he gets caught, and they go back to the TVA, and Mobius is having a conversation with Renslayer. And Renslayer, she's talking to him. They're talking back and forth, and he mentions another analyst. Mm-hmm. And then this other analyst gets mentioned again a minute later when he uses her pen to sign the form. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Oh, the high school," and he's like, "Did you get that from your analyst as well?" And I think she agreed that she did, or something like that. So there's another character that was mildly hinted at that we're not yet familiar with. Did you catch that?
What I caught was Mobius being almost jealous that she connects with other agents in the same capacity that she connects with him. I think that Mobius really values the relationship that he has with her, she will kind of let him go out on a limb, on a hunch, be a little reckless, and he is kind of discovering that she's got that relationship with other agents.
Yeah.
I didn't really pick up on there being one other specific agent that she's also got in her arsenal. I hadn't picked up on that. Do you think? I mean, what capacity do you think this character would play, or what kind of role do you think this character would play? Rather,
I don't know. It's tough because I could see that. I could see it just being a way to show that there's a little bit more to Mobius and Renslayer than just working together. Maybe he has a thing for her. Maybe they had a thing in the past, or maybe it is another person that's going to throw a bit of a monkey wrench into our story here.
Hard to say. It's still early. It's still so early to speculate on all these things.
It is early, but it's been really enjoyable, and I do like that they're giving us stuff to speculate on, while also, I'm just glad that, we mentioned that they got to the multiverse destruction really quick. We got to Lady Loki really quick, where I was like, we were left wondering who the power broker was going to be in Falcon and Winter Soldier until the last 30 minutes of the show.
Right.
And, same with WandaVision. We got Agatha, episode 7 of 9, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
And so it's nice that we at least got some of those things that they're changing it up. They're changing they're moving the speculation off of who this character is to what they want to do. And it's a nice change of pace from the other shows, I think.
Yeah. The thing that excites me the most about this show, which you would think it would be the time travel, because I'm such a sucker for time travel. The way that they're doing time travel doesn't really, it's not getting me in the same way that like Avengers time travel got me, where it's, the whole, I don't know, but it's hard to put that kind of love into words, but I'm really excited to see how this show affects the future of MCU properties, specifically with the movies that are already lined up, specifically with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I love that I hope that the TVA is a part of it. I really do.
I'm sure it's in some fashion they may be. The thing about Doctor Strange that we keep bringing it up, but it's just kind of obvious because the name is Multiverse of Madness. But
right,
the thing about it is we really don't know anything about it. We know obviously Doctor Strange and Wong are in it. We know Wanda's going to be in it. We know Mordo is going to be in it. We've been told that it's a bit more of a horror feel to it, and it's supposed to be a trippy movie. So, but we don't know really a whole lot. So I'm hoping that Loki kind of gives. Maybe they were waiting for Loki to finish up before they give us more of it. But
probably, I would assume so.
I'm really hoping that this sheds some light on what that movie's going to be, because they've been really protective of what that movie is, almost at the same level of Infinity War and Endgame protective.
Yeah, how good a job did I know this is a huge tangent, but how good a job did the publicity team do of not tipping their hand to any? They didn't show any time travel stuff in the trailers. They never talked about any time travel stuff in interviews. I mean, it was under you have this crazy $1 billion movie being made, and everybody's trying to poke their nose in for secrets, and they were able to make a movie about something, and then all of the scenes in the trailers are in like the first like 20 or 30 minutes of the movie. How crazy is that?
The only thing you see that hints to time travel is when they're all in the quantum suits. But even that, but they were in the suit. Didn't they change it in the trailer to where they were wearing their actual suit, or did they show them in the quantum suits?
No, they showed them in the quantum suits, definitely, but I think
they took Ant-Man out, though. I don't think they showed that Ant-Man was in.
Yes, that was it. That was the one, because I was thinking maybe it was Tony Stark that they took out. No, they did. They showed Tony Stark there. They took Ant-Man out because they didn't want to reveal that he gets out of the quantum realm.
No, they did a really good job at being secretive of that movie.
For sure.
I'm glad they did. So I think that's all I've got for Loki this week. Do you?
Yeah, I'm spent on notes. That's the episode, man.
All right. Well, special thanks to anybody that caught the episode on YouTube, Apple, whatever your preferred platform is. We're everywhere. We have links in the show notes for everything, so feel free to check us out on your preferred platform. If you are on YouTube, drop us a like, maybe leave a comment, let us know what you thought of Loki episode 2 and what you're hoping for the rest of the show and the rest of the MCU that we know is coming. And other than that, I think just keep on keeping on.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Ryan for writing in with his thoughts on the series. We always like to interact with people who are listening to the show. You know, we would love to encourage more of that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Well, we'll catch you next week, folks.
Catch you later.